Hello there, it's me D Square, and I want to talk to you today and show you a really interesting fight that happened all the way back in the Avengers vs. the X-Men Story arc. It is, of course, the invincible Iron Man versus Magneto. Now, you would guess that this would be a pretty short fight, having, of course, a man in an iron suit versus the master of magnetism. But I'm sure that most of us understand that Tony Stark, otherwise known as Iron Man, always has a few tricks up his sleeve, so let's see how he does in his fight versus Magneto, the master of magnetism. This fight starts with Iron Man and Magneto kind of sizing each other up. Of course, Magneto scoffs a little bit at the fact that Iron Man is going to fight Magneto, the master of magnetism, but he quickly learns that Iron Man's suit is indeed not made of metal. It is made of something called carbon nanotubes, and with this technology, the Iron Man is not susceptible to Magneto's magnetism powers. But we do see that is not the only strategy that Magneto can use to defend himself. There's a lot of metal and a lot of things, and this fight takes place near Utopia. Now, Utopia is the X-Men's headquarters that is based off of the coast of San Francisco. This was established after Wolverine and Cyclops had their big schism. So Cyclops and the mutants that followed him reside in Utopia. This, of course, includes Magneto, and again is one of the battlefields during the Avengers vs. X-Men Story arc. And so Magneto promptly uses one of the towers of Utopia and slams it on top of Iron Man. So the Iron Man just had 170 tons worth of metal and stone just dropped on him. Magneto kind of starts to walk away, thinks that he may have won the fight, but Iron Man does survive through it and starts to, enact his anti-magnetism arsenal. And he starts firing these things called super magnet swarms. These do kind of mess with Magneto, but just after a few brief moments, Magneto is, of course, able to gain control. Naturally, Magneto is able to gain control of these several million magnets and throw them right back at Iron Man. Tony Stark then realizes he needs to go ahead and squash Plan 1A and go ahead and go right to Plan 1802, which is to use a system of satellites that are orbiting Jupiter, which of course has 10 times the magnetic field of Earth. With this system of satellites, he is able to siphon power from the planet and, of course, use it to zap Magneto. Iron Man and Magneto, they're throwing everything they have at one another. They actually end up in, low Earth orbit up in space, so Magneto has to cover his face in order to stay alive. It certainly doesn't stop them. They're trading punches in midair. And finally, Magneto just stops. The reason why he just stops is because during the events of Avengers vs. X-Men, the Phoenix Force is headed toward Earth. And on its way toward Earth, she is decimating planets one by one. Magneto's powers are so heightened that he can literally feel planets galaxies away because of their magnetic poles and the metal within the planet's composition. So he begins to feel the Phoenix moving through, destroying planets. And this basically makes him freeze. He stops the fight. Iron Man, of course, takes it as a win. With Magneto paralyzed in his thoughts, thinking that this fight is basically insignificant, while the Phoenix is out there destroying planets one by one, why should it continue? So he just stops, and Iron Man flies away as the victor, which is, incredibly strange because, again, as I mentioned, you wouldn't think that Iron Man wouldn't be able to beat Magneto, the master of magnetism, and we see that that's exactly what happens here. However, I am going to point out that that is just because Magneto realizes that the impending doom coming toward Earth makes this fight completely insignificant. There's no point in it, so he literally just stops while Iron Man flies away. So, there you have it. Interesting stuff there. This was definitely a fight that I wondered would happen back when I was reading the Avengers vs. X-Men Story arc, and we did indeed get to see it, although not in the main story. There was an offshoot series of comics called AVX, and it literally didn't have any story in it. It was just, you know, this person versus this person. You know, we had a Colossus versus Thing, you know, all sorts of cool stuff, you know, Captain America versus Gambit. So, and I may dive into those a little bit more from time to time, as they are a definitive version of, you know, these characters going versus one another. But this was definitely one of the more interesting ones here. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to make sure that you don't miss any of my content, and I would love to see some comments and interact. You can, of course, also get at me at dsquare72 on Twitter. Well, guys, until next time, peace and love, and we'll see you again soon.